Okay, this is the last portion of Unit 3. We're still in Chapter 2. And we are going to go to Sienna. I'm sorry, Chapter 14. Yeah. It says 2 up there. My brain saw 2, and it said 2. Thank you for correcting me, making sure that we're all on the same page. Yes, Chapter 14, Part 2. And we're going to go to Siena, Italy. Um, I want you to know this part of Italy because we will be discussing this at length at the beginning of next semester. In fact, this whole chapter is a setup for the beginning of next semester. All right, Siena is a city state. It is independent, therefore, there is no king, no ruler. And it's very much like Florence. The wealth is done with banking and uh, there is no single ruler. It's ruled by a conglomeration of bankers. And Siena and Florence are rivals at this time. And we're about the year 1260, and Siena defeats Florence. So Florence is a really strong city state, and Siena was able to beat them. Anyways, we're going to go to the main. Uh, uh, this is basically City Hall for Siena. This is the main governmental palace. And when it says Palazzo Pubblico or Publico, Palazzo is palace, public is like Publico is public, like a government. It's a government palace. It's the main governmental center. All right, there is a room inside this palace, the Sala della Palace, and we're going to take a look at the murals on this room. Oh, Sala della Pace means Hall of Peace. It is a secular room, not religious. It is a meeting room. And this is where the city rulers would meet. And the murals that we see here remind the city council to be good and just. And it also warns them of the dangers of not being good and fair. The leaders of the city would have term limits. So the term limits would only be about 2 months, and which is what I wish our politicians would do. We'd have short term limits because career politicians just really muck things up. All right, and leaders look at these and say, if I do my job right, my city will look like this. So on the back, we have the allegory of good government. On the right side is the effects of good government in the city and the country. And on the left side, we are looking at the allegory and effects of bad government in the city and in the country. So, our first artwork that we're going to look at is the allegory of good government. We got it? Need more time? Moving on. All right, so let's take a look at this painting right here. The large figure on the left, that is Siena. All right, and she is the common good. And Siena represents justice. Above her is wisdom. And she is holding these threads or strings that are going down to justice is looking up to wisdom, and she is rewarding and punishing. You can see on the left side that people are being beaten and mistreated. That's the punishment. On the right side, they're being given gifts. That is the reward. And the cords are going down to the figure below. And the figure is holding a plane to smooth the rough surfaces. So here's the plane right here, and they have this surface right here that they're moving the plane along. That is Concordia, or what is written on there is Concordia, which means harmony or agreement. So this creates equality among the different levels of society. All these people here are holding onto the cord, and these are the people of Siena, and they are held in line, held in check by holding onto the cords that come from Justice herself. The cord then goes up to good commune, surrounded by the virtues. So, peace, fortitude, prudence, magnanimity, and justice. And the angels above are hope, clarity, and faith. So these are the virtues. All right, here we're going to take a close look at peace. And notice that peace is relaxing because the other virtues have done their job. Under her pillow is armor. She can take off her armor and relax. And this armor right here used to be silver, but it has oxidized. All right, now we're going to look at the painting on the right, which is the effects of good government in the city and the country. Are we ready to move on? Anybody need more time? I'm going to move on. So the painting to the right is divided up into two parts. The part on the left is it shows the city, and then there's a wall to the right of the city, and then there's the outside. So that wall right there, right here, is the division between the city and the country. And so we have a scene, excuse me, a scene of the country on the right side of the painting. So let's take a look at the city first. This is an urban utopia. This is a paradise in an urban context, an environment where humanity can flourish. The message is, if I do my job, this is what my city will be. That's to the governors that are in that room planning for the city. Win, you can move to another part where you're not being blinded. I really need to put to block that light up there. All right. So if we take a closer look, we see a hosiery shop. They got socks hanging up for people to buy. In the background, there's a school where kids are learning. And then there's also a meat market in here somewhere. We have people dancing and playing music and having a good time. We have builders that are building new buildings and repairing broken buildings. So that's all good government. This is what your city will be like if you have a good city. And then out in the countryside, we have people that are working in the fields. By the way, the hills that are here look just like the hills that are around Siena. So it is very specific to the hills that are actually there. We have hunters going hunting, and we have somebody bringing a pig to market. And so we have the hunters going out. And then we have people working in the fields and making food. This is spring and summer. They're sowing the seeds and they're harvesting. And this is what good government will do. And then there's this figure of security flying up in the sky, and it says, "Without fear, every man may travel freely, and each may till and sow, so long as this commune still maintains this lady sovereign, for she has stripped the wicked of all power." Then on the left side of the room, We have the allegory and effects of bad government in the city and in the country. Are we good to go? Anybody need more time? Are you good? So if we get a closer look, we have tyranny in the center. So if you don't govern well, you're going to get tyranny surrounded by vices. And the vices are cruelty, treason, fraud, fury, divisiveness, and war. Up in the sky, we have avarice, pride, and vainglory. All right. And then also, your city has battlements. That's a reference to war. Justice is tied up, no longer in control of the city. And if you start looking at the city, you see all kinds of places where it is in disrepair. There is no new construction and no construction where they're fixing broken buildings. And then we have these two guys roughing up a woman, right? Are we looking at a sexual assault? And then we have somebody on the ground. Have they been knocked out? Are they killed? Are they drunk? This fresco is in very bad condition. And but we do see in the countryside there are burned fields and houses on fire, and then we have terror flying around. And terror says, because each seeks only his own good, in this city justice is subjected to tyranny. Wherefore along this road nobody passes without fearing for his life, since there are robberies outside and inside the city gates. So it is always good to be a good politician, to do things that help the people instead of making the city go bad. All right, let's take a look at Florence. A couple things I want to point out in Florence. All right, again, it is right next to Siena. Florence is a city state. It's a very strong city state, and they go to war a lot with the people that are around them. But it is not ruled by a king or any one person. It is ruled by a group, and again, it's ruled by bankers. All right, a couple things I want to point out in the city. I want to point out the cathedral over here on the left. And then that building with the tall tower sticking out of it, that is the Palazzo Vecchio. We'll look at that in a second. And then in that little building in between, that is the Orson Michel, and we'll look at that. All right. So first, let's go to the cathedral. Now, what do you think is missing on this cathedral? Yeah, it's missing a dome. All right. So they built this cathedral and they said we're going to have the biggest dome that ever was, and they built the cathedral, and by the time they got to the dome they couldn't figure out how to build that big dome. All right, so here in the medieval era, this is an unfinished cathedral with no dome. When we begin the second semester, one of the first artworks that we're going to look at is the dome. So this cathedral goes for 100 years, 150 years without a dome. And that means, yes, when it rains inside the cathedral. Um, let's see. So, all right, here's why they couldn't build a big dome. Is one is they could have built it like the Pantheon, the Roman Pantheon. However, they didn't make the walls thick enough. Remember how thick the walls were of the Pantheon? That was how it was able to support that dome. This was going to be a bigger dome, and its walls were not thick enough to support a massive dome like that. Also, they could have done a buttressing uh, they could have supported it with buttressing, but this cathedral was designed without buttressing. So again, they couldn't support the weight of the dome because of the lack of buttressing. And like I said, the dome was left unfinished for over 100 years. One way to make a dome is to build an arch and then make it go 360 degrees. And the way they build arches is they use timber or wood to make a frame on the inside, and they put all the rocks and stones in place, and it's the gravity that holds them all together. But a dome this large, there is not enough wood in the surrounding area to make a structure to support that dome. So that they couldn't build the dome that way. All right, so we'll talk about this dome first thing next semester, but we're going to take a look at the baptistry, that building right there. And we are going to take a look at the doors of the baptistry. You love my drawing of the dome with or the cathedral. So we have the main cathedral here. There's the dome, and this is the campanile. This is the tower, and then this is the baptistry right there. So we're going to look at the west door of the baptistry, and that was created by Andrea Pisano. It took him 6 years to make these doors, or to make the artworks that go on these doors, and they are done using these quatrefoils. I'll show you quatrefoils in a second. There are 28 panels, and they all tell the scenes from the life of Saint John the Baptist. The shape here with these round shapes and then these little like triangular parts coming out, it almost looks like there's a square here, and then on each side of the square is a half circle, and that's called a quatrefoil. If we get a closer look, we have scenes of St. John the Baptist. I am showing you these doors because I'm going to talk about another set of doors at the beginning of next semester. So I want you to remember this for next semester. Next, we're going to go to the Palazzo della Signoria, or the Palazzo Vecchio. Again, this is a civic building. This is a building for the city governors. And all right, so what we're going to talk about with this building, we're going to talk a lot about the stuff that's around it next semester. But I want to introduce this building to you. This is a medieval building, but there's a lot of Renaissance stuff around here that we're going to talk about. I just want to introduce you to this building. All right, so right there, there are several Renaissance sculptures. And then over here to the right is a structure that houses Renaissance statues and sculptures. And then I want to point out this tiny little building right here. Actually, it's not quite so tiny. It's a rather large building, and it's called the Orson Michel. I've seen it spelled with Orson is one word. I've seen it spelled with Orson as two words. I've heard it pronounced Orson Michel, and I've also heard it pronounced Orson Michele. Anyways, I want to introduce this building. This is a medieval building, or it's a late medieval Italy building, and we're going to look at Renaissance sculptures that are in it. And if you look at these little sculptures that are around the base of the building. So I just want you to remember that this is a medieval building. And basically, it's a grain factory that's been turned into a church. All right, and that will finish us for Unit 3. We are going to do a exam review tomorrow, and we will do part 1 of the exam on Friday, or Monday. I haven't decided yet. All right. Any questions about any of this? Oh, you guys have an assignment due today. You have your comparison is due today, the 8th. All right. Also, you guys can be using this time to do your detail drawing and do find your article for Unit 3 and doing your sketches for your notes. All right. So we're at the end of Unit 3. Start doing your Unit 3 stuff if you haven't done it already. And there is also soft chalks to do. So you guys have plenty to do.